Hey everybody, this is Mr. Moppin coming at you. Today we're taking a look at an APUSH video focusing in on topic 4.6, taking a look at the effects of the market revolution on society and culture. So, as the name implies, as the title implies, this market revolution that is sweeping through America in the early 19th century is going to have a major effect on various aspects of American life. And so we're going to kind of break that down into some different components. First off, starting with taking a look at the impact of the market revolution era, its impact on women. One of the things that will be significant and probably not a surprise as a result of the market revolution is that more women are going to be working in urban areas now as opposed to on farms. Obviously, the factories are located in urban areas. That's where the jobs are. So we're going to be seeing more of that. Now, that being said, it's not just going to be factory work that many women are going to be finding themselves engaged in if they are working outside the home. Many will be serving as domestic servants, in other words, as a maid or something along like that, a nanny, or even teachers, especially those that have a little bit more education. But don't forget, many are also going to be working in those factories, like at Lowell that we talked about previously. So, as we said before, more women are going to be working outside the home than before. But remember, this is not as an example of feminism. This is not a sign of gender equity that women are striving for at this time. It's just purely out of economic necessity. These are women that are coming from the poorer homes, the poorer families. Many of them are immigrants that we talked about before. And note, to give you once again a sense that this is not about feminism, these jobs were almost exclusively for young single women. If you were a woman that got married, and most did, even if you were working when you were single, once you got married, the expectation culturally still was that you stayed home, you raised the children, you become the focus of domestic life for your family. And speaking of that, there's still this continuation going back to the previous generation of the founding fathers, that women are still viewed culturally as the, kind of the moral center of family life. That women, and once again, this is all stereotyping, is, the idea being that women are the nurturers, that women are the more compassionate gender compared to men. Therefore, women need to be the ones that promote, Republican motherhood, as we talked about before. But generally, this idea that there's this cult of domesticity, that women are expected to have this role in the family as the caregiver, as the mother, as the dutiful wife. This is still going to be a very, very, very strong expectation for women at this time. We're a long way off from what we would consider to be, gender equity in terms of what we expect out of different genders in society. That being said, romantic marriages are starting to become more common. Traditionally, marriages were arranged, regardless of what class of society. Marriages, going back, almost to, the beginning of human civilization, was really more of an economic, if not political transaction than a transaction made regarding, true love. In other words, fathers would basically, trade off their daughters for some sort of economic gain or political gain or something along those lines. But that is now finally starting to kind of break down more. And so what you're seeing is, more of a sense of people marrying for love as opposed to, meeting certain family commitments, so to speak. And also note that the number of children that women are having at this time is also declining. What had been, in excess of 10 pregnancies during a woman's life typically was now down to about 6 to 8 pregnancies, which is still by modern standards a lot of pregnancies. And remember, this is still a time well before modern birth control. But relatively speaking, fewer children are being born, or I should say being born, but women are getting pregnant less often. But still note, though, that the typical mother is still going to have at least one child, usually more than one child, that will not survive to adulthood, usually because of some sort of, contagious disease. Also, of course, for many of us, we know full well that women do not enjoy full political rights. Women do not have the right to vote. Women cannot hold public office. Women might be more present in the economic world, in the business world than we'd seen in the past as employees. But these women are very rarely business owners in their own right. So women are still going to be culturally dominated by men, even though we are moving into this new manufacturing-based industrial age. With regards to social mobility and the ability to kind of achieve that American dream, we are seeing real wages actually increasing for these factory workers, which is a good thing. So there's more financial stability working in the factory than there is on the farm. And that's only going to continue to drive more people away from the farms and towards the cities for these factory jobs. We're just beginning what is going to be really a century-long trend. However, even though real wages are going up for urban workers, the wage gap is noticeably increasing. It is dramatically increasing. Take a look at some of these figures here. For example, back during the Revolution, as you can see here, about 45% of the wealth was held by the top 10% of the population. But take a look as we go through this market revolution era and see what's happening to the wealth gap. By the time we get to 1845, in the midst of this market revolution in the city of Boston, the top 4% owned about 2/3 of the wealth. And in Philadelphia, on the eve of the Civil War, you had the top 1% of wealthiest Philadelphians owning about half of the city's wealth. So what does this mean? It means that there is a tremendous growth in the gap between the rich and poor. No question about it. Even though there is this growing wealth gap in American society, there is still more social mobility that is possible here in the United States than what you saw in Europe. Europe still had a much more entrenched social class system that was much harder to transcend. America prides itself on not having this entrenched nobility, that there is this idea of coming from nothing and going to becoming a success. We pride ourselves on this idea of America allowing for the rags to riches stories, that kind of stuff. However, that was very uncommon. Yes, we had some examples. There are examples, no question about it. You think of somebody like an Andrew Jackson, for example, who came from nothing in the Carolinas to becoming president of the United States. But those examples are pretty rare. We like to think of it as the typical American story. It was really more atypical. So in other words, if you were born into the poor class, chances are you stayed in the poor class your entire life. You didn't really raise up particularly. Now, in addition, we also saw some noticeable changes in population and some changes in terms of issues affecting labor, but we will get to those next time in part 2. We'll see you later.